And welcome to the Tech Show, where we've got...
some new short cranks.
Oh, we've got a one-piece handlebar.
And a titanium gearbox bike.
And much, much more.
So this week we're talking about 6 upgrades that are actually worth the money. And we've discussed around the office, haven't we? And we come up with these 6 as a group. And the first one that's pretty much on everyone's list is wheels. And I completely agree. Great wheels are a great upgrade on your bike. But I appreciate that if you have medium spec wheels to high anyway, then maybe going higher isn't a great upgrade because there's only so much you can improve on, and not everyone can upgrade from aluminium to carbon. So there are kind of some budget options on this as well, isn't there? I personally would always say go for some bearing upgrades on your wheels if you've got sort of a mid-spec to high-spec already. So
just upgrading the bearings to better ones, or just replacing the bearings that are in there?
A bit of both.
Oh,
I
nice.
mean, good maintenance is always a good thing, and that's definitely certainly a cheaper option. But you can get bearing upgrades for certain wheels, and I know we're fortunate enough to be riding on FSA and Reynolds, and it's so nice to get onto high-spec hubs and have those sort of high-end bearings that are, you know, they roll so fast, they pick up great momentum, and I really appreciate that. But also I appreciate not everyone can afford that, but it is a great upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it links into maintenance. So, you know, if you've got bearings in wheels, it does like a noticeable difference to your bike if it rolls smooth and rolls quicker. It's just sort of free speed. So if you keep on top of wheel bearings, actually, you're going to roll quicker for less money. And rolling is another thing that good tyres do. Better tyres go a long way. I feel like for the sort of benefit to cost ratio, I reckon good tyres are probably one of the top upgrades. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got all the money in the world to throw at it, because tyres are not cheap these days, appreciate that, then you would go for tyres for the right terrain. You would have different ones for different weather patterns, for winter, for summer, all of that. But if you don't have that money, then a good all-rounder is such a good buy, isn't it? When it literally says... or does what it says on the tyre, and that is to be a good all-rounder, to be good in dry and mixed, and not be amazing, but good enough.
And I think it's that upgrade from the sort of the original equipment that your bike might come with. They can be, you know, kind of an okay tyre, but the compounds are often a bit harder. They might be a wire bead, they might not be tubeless ready. And okay, tubeless isn't for everybody, but it is also an upgrade that you've sort of got to discuss when we talk about tyres. But getting those aftermarket compounds, you can feel the difference, especially on a sort of wet and slippery trail. But I guess related to that is also if you're kind of rolling along, you're getting more grip, maximising that grip, and then, well, better brakes.
Yeah, well, actually, before we move on to brakes, or sort of paired, is that if you have better tread, then you do actually have better braking power, don't you?
Of course,
a lot of the time. So that is an upgrade sort of almost before brakes. But brakes are definitely a great upgrade. But if you have decent brakes already, say you already have 2-piston, reasonably powerful brakes on your trail bike, for example, an upgrade in brakes might not necessarily be the best value for money, but an upgrade in discs, I notice straight away. In fact, I did a video on this this time last year about disc brake sizing and how upgrading your rotor size and actually the quality of your rotor sizing and the heat management as well makes a huge difference, the amount of power you can get from just a 1-piston brake, to be honest.
Okay. Interesting, yeah. I guess related to that, we're rolling faster, we're stopping faster, and I guess we also need to think about how we're tracking over that terrain. So do we just sort of go for a full, you know, better suspension, or is there another step?
I mean, as much as I'm talking about budget options here, this is one of those things I would spend a lot of money on. I am absolutely a sucker for top-end suspension because I think it completely rules a mountain bike. Let me know in the comments below if you completely disagree with me. But for a budget option, if you can't afford to upgrade your entire forks or your whole entire system, you can upgrade internals on a lot of forks and shocks, rear shocks, and also just getting a good service if you've had them for a while.
Yeah, well, I think I've seen it with some sort of like newer shocks. Unfortunately, some brands aren't super diligent about sort of like how they're produced, and they might be greased in slightly the wrong place, and it does affect performance. So I think lots of people getting a fork service can just boost how the bike works, how the bike tracks, and thus the experience of your ride is better. Okay, it feels like we've ticked off a lot of things. What else in terms of the upgrade,
Well, speaking of servicing, surely the right tools for the job is a must-have. I mean, we wouldn't be GMBN Tech if we didn't talk tools, but I do think having a decent set of tools, even if it's just a small toolbox with the essentials, but a good quality set of tools really gets you by with keeping on top of your bike and saving you money in the long run, hopefully.
Well, if it's easier and more joyful to work on your bike, I think that's probably a plus.
There's nothing worse than working with cheap Allen keys, so in my opinion, that's a good upgrade.
Yeah, definitely.
And a track pump with an actual inflator canister in it, or some kind of charger. That always helps with tubeless as well, and that's a great upgrade on the pumps. Any more? We need a sixth one. What are you saying?
Well, I think it's now become like a default. If your bike's got just a suspension fork, or it's got a rigid fork, or it's full suspension, where would we be without a dropper post? So if you haven't got a dropper post, I feel like it is a really good upgrade.
If you don't, I think whatever genre you are, cross-country, enduro, whatever, I think it is a very good...
Say it quietly.
No, you're right. It's a great upgrade. Anyway, let us know down in the comments below, what do you think of our 6 key upgrades that are absolutely worth the money? Or is there another one that you would choose?
Got some exciting news. New FSA NS SIC integrated handlebar. So this is a stem handlebar one piece.
Okay.
So the name is quite long, but thankfully it only comes in effectively 2 sizes. So both of them are 760 width. You can get an 80mm or a 60mm stem, which is sort of like in a -12 position, which if you hadn't guessed, this is sort of aimed bang on for cross country. Okay, maybe some fancier trail bikes. But the idea is that it brings the same tech, almost all the same tech, as the KFX one, which they launched earlier this year, which is on quite a few cross-country race bikes at World Cups. Just to a slightly different price point. So full carbon construction, which drops weight and balances stiffness, so it should ride really nicely. It's not quite as fully integrated in terms of cables like the KFX one. Just sort of 2 stem sizes, 1 bar width, and yours for €296.
And Hope have updated their crank range, I'm going to say, because they now do 135 mils, which was, they recently came out with the 155. They were hugely popular, not just amongst e-bikers, which they thought was going to be the big selling point, but a load of people asked for 135s now, so they're doing it. So their range is now 135, 155, 165, 170 and 175, and they're all machined from 7075 aluminium. You can have these on fat bikes, XE bikes, DH, Super Boost, wide. There's so many options, you need to have a look at it. But effectively, including the axle and the spider, you're looking at £300 retail or $380 excluding tax.
Next, we've got from Ride Wrap, who are the people that have done lots of, I guess, protective stickers, that's the best term. They've got wheel protection now, which kind of makes sense actually, whether you're running alloy rims or carbon rims. So they're clear decals, much like the frame protection ones, and they help against scratches, rock strikes. You've got a variety of different wheel sizes, depths and types, so you get them for road bikes or mountain bikes and gravel. Works on carbon, works on aluminium. Customizable, it says, for asymmetric rims, which is a good thing. Bit of brain gym there to work out which way you've got to line it up with spoke holes. £45 and 60 pence per wheel, or £82 per pair. Seems quite reasonable.
Not bad. P&W have started doing a stem. This is new to them. They've called it the Loam Stem, I guess along with things like their Loam Dropper, etc. So it's for mountain biking. You can have it in 32mm or 40mm. It is machined from aluminium, and you can have a 35mm or a 31.8 clamp diameter. And it wouldn't be P&W if it wasn't in their classic colours. So you get it in black, orange, purple or silver, and it's got a 0 rise, which is pretty nice, and you're looking at 170 grams in a 40mm length stem, and that is $99 and it comes with a lifetime warranty on a stem. Wow. Yeah,
that's good. Interesting news, this one. So it's not a product, more that you can get a product service. So this is Canyon, who are teaming up with REI, a cooperative in the States. I'm sure everyone in the States knows about them. In the UK, probably less so. They are, huge outdoor, shop, store, cooperative that you can get loads of bikes, loads of outdoor kit in. And yeah, they're partnering up as an authorised service partner for Canyon Bikes. So it means that, well, they've got another service option, because I think, yeah, some shops have been a bit wary of Canyon because they're a kind of direct consumer and they're not sure whether they'd be able to get parts and things like that. Whereas, yeah, REI have stepped in. So it's starting immediately, and that's starting in Southern California, Denver and Washington, and they're going to expand out in 2025 to more than 190 REI bike shops and locations.
Not bad. So Viral Bikes have updated one of their bikes, and if you've never heard of Viral Bikes, it was actually came about from the founder of Niner Bikes. So the founder and engineer who started that up now started up Viral Bikes, and he's big on titanium and big on gearboxes. So if you like that, this is where you go. So they did previously have the Skeptic, which is a belt-driven pinion gearbox 27.5 mountain bike, and they've now got the Derive, which was previously a 120mm 29er, but now the updates is a bit more of a geometry tweak, and also the Pinion Smart Shift Ready. So if you want that auto shifting on a titanium mountain bike and some fancy decals in that sort of nice rainbow finish, then this is the one for you. So check it out, and you can have it in either a classic mountain bike spec or a bikepacking spec, which is all sort of sturdy with the dynamo internal routing as well.
Okay, things we've seen. Now, I think this could almost make the news, but I feel like I'd upset a lot of people. So this is Ultra Romance.
To me.
Well, effectively, it is all new. Literally a brand new frame. But when I tell you the specs, it might be sort of, yeah, a bit confusing. So we've got a 29er frame, aluminium frame, steel fork. It's all very, very nice. It is a rim brake bike, and it does have, yeah, 2x, well, whatever you want to put on it. So you can put a front mech on it. This is a throwback. This is Ultra Romance, or Ron as he's known. This is his sort of modern day dream bike. It's very different, but I think some people might like it. Let us know in the comments your thoughts.
Very utilitarian. I noticed some anomaly, which is really hard for me to say, the switch grade, which is effectively a saddle adjuster. Like you have a little lever and you can dip your saddle to get it out of the way. And now they did a sort of limited edition, which you're hopefully looking at on screen right now, with gold and black. And they only launched this 4 days ago, well, at the time of filming this, and it's already sold out. So yeah, soz guys.
Very popular.
I still liked it though.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting thing in terms of like changing your angle for climbing and descending. It's, yeah, I guess it's not dissimilar to, we had this seat post switching device that we covered a couple of weeks ago that's, yeah, similar. There's lots of chat about that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, talk to us in the comments. Last thing we saw was that Williams Racing, so these are kind of a group of Aussies. They're making the Trinity downhill bike, which has got a really interesting internal gearbox. Yeah, that in itself is interesting, but they're also doing like a, well, it's a bit like a coaster hub replacement for DT Swiss hubs. So brief analogy of what coaster hubs are. Effectively, it allows your bike to roll backwards because it disengages the drive, which it sounds like it would, yeah, be confusing, but it's meant to make your suspension much, much better. So not dissimilar to the E13 hubs that we've seen and the O-chain system. This disconnects that kind of rearward or forward motion from the free hub to your cranks. Sounds really confusing. It looks like some kind of like wizardry, but yeah, very, very interesting. I'd love to try one. What are your thoughts? Let us know. Quiz time! Have you got last week, sorry? I'm saying yesterday.
Well, it's your question. You go ahead.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, right, cool.
You go
okay,
for
right.
this one. This is right up your street.
Last week we talked about scary bikes, and one of the bikes that scared me was the Preston. And yeah, I asked what was the white Preston named after, and thankfully lots of you got it right. I thought it was going to be a bit of a sort of brain gym for people in terms of they get stumped on it, but actually loads of people got it right. You're all on here. Hi Tim, always good to have you on there, and Sepster, thank you. So yeah, Preston was the mechanical dog from Wallace and Gromit's movie A Close Shave. A classic.
It is a classic, and a couple of people in the comments saying that they were scared of that bike as well too,
so
quite relevant. So my question this week is, you've seen the handlebars that we've showed you from FSA, but what does FSA stand for? So I've got an Ask GMBN Tech here from Vadik Ram. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'll put the full question on screen because it's quite long, but effectively you are asking, I have used my bike in the winter, it was very cold, I've noticed the top layer of my tyres have short cracks in them. I'm inclined to assume the damage is solely to the soft layer and not to the double casing underneath. Are they safe to use effectively for one more summer? I mean, it's hard to say without seeing your tyres, but cracks in rubber tend to mean that it's starting to go brittle, it's starting to go off, they're starting to perish. So even though you've mentioned there's no knobs that are worn off, just because you haven't worn them down doesn't mean that the rubber is still in good quality. It will eventually wear itself out anyway. So cracks could indicate that it's going brittle, they might not grip very well, they might not, certainly in the wet, they might not conform around the terrain, they might not feel very good, and they might be more susceptible to punctures. And personally, I wouldn't want to muck around with tyres because you could get a blowout, and you have been talking about park, and if you're doing park, I would just have good quality tyres on your bike anyway. So I appreciate that they do cost a lot of money, but if you are asking my personal opinion, I think cracks are indicating that they might need to be replaced. But by all means, take them to a bike shop and ask them what you think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you've kind of nailed it there. I think it's really tricky to know without seeing more. But if you've got kind of cracks, it does sound like maybe where you're storing it, they've kind of, and this sounds daft, but dried effectively, I guess. There's lots of oils in tyres, and over time, depending on what the atmosphere is, they could dry and they do start to perish. So yeah, I think it's that thing of you could be fine, might be all right. But if you're riding park and you're in the middle of nowhere and suddenly, well, if a tyre knob gets pulled off the carcass, it's not that bad. But if you suddenly hole the side of your tyre and you've got a massive hole in it and you can't fix it, that's problematic. Depending on if you've got bears near you, obviously, because then it could be really bad. So yeah, probably replacement time. You might have seen on the weekend, we had a video up on GMBN Tech all about, is this the future of mountain bike? And we looked into the past, and then we had a new futuristic concept bike. And, well, one of the people that we name-check in that video is Jurgen Beneke, who is a legend of downhill. He won the 1993 overall title on, well, a bike similar to a Manitou FS, which is what we talk about in the video. And, well, here's more of Jurgen.
All right, it was 1993 when I got this bike, and with the dual shock elastomer suspension. And it was the right bike for the right time. At that point, I was coming off a hardtail bike, and those were the first suspension bikes we had. And it was more about riding fast on fire roads. It was accelerating, sprinting, and the weight mattered a lot. This bike ended up actually being lighter than some of the hardtail bikes, the non-suspension bikes. So having a lightweight full suspension bike was definitely a game changer. Also, it wasn't really that important that it would stick to the ground really well. It was more about taking some of the hard impacts away. And also not having a dampening allowed you to jump higher sometimes, clearing further technical sections and bunny hopping higher, which is counterproductive to racing these days. But it was definitely the right bike for the right time.
So it's comments time from you lovely people, and last week you were talking about the scariest bike tech because it was kind of Halloween, wasn't it, last week?
Spooktacular.
And from It's a Trap, 614, are you a Star Wars fan? Maybe. Exposed 3x cranksets. He said he crashed with the chain on the second ring, and the largest ring ripped a large gap through his right calf. That happened to me. I've got a little thing that looks like I've been attacked by a bear on my
So he told you about bears being dangerous.
Back in the day, yeah.
Laurentus Trius, I still can't say your name, I'm so very sorry. Early on he saw lots of bent handlebars and quill stems. That's something that they're glad they solved. Indeed, quill stems, yeah, they were interesting.
Yeah, speaking of stems, Tim Sadler says Gervin flex stems on a Peugeot Sahara. That is pretty scary.
Yeah, that is. So yeah, flex stem literally flexed in a kind of slightly awkward way. And opposed to like a suspension bike where the shock moved up, it just felt like your handlebars were just collapsing. So if you were heading down something, it felt like you were immediately over the bars. They did work for a bit though.
Felt that way about the Specialized Roubaix that came out with the little bouncy
gravel chat. Careful, banned topic. Okay, next is Kai VK coaster brakes on medium to long descents. So this is a coaster brake. This is like early days of mountain biking. You can still get them on some bikes. Essentially, you're having to backpedal to engage the brake to get it to work. It's, engaging.
Simon Griffiths, got to agree with you here. Surely the random tandem is the scariest bike ever made. Certainly for the person on the back, yes.
I'd agree with that. Martin is mad on that bike. And E. Xavier says the De Hon Cadenza. So for those of you out there that don't know this bike, this is a folding mountain bike. And I say mountain bike, I think it would be really good in urban environments on kind of, like bumpier roads. Not so much on full mountain biking.
I wonder how
because you've got a hinge in the middle of it to fold up.
But I wonder how that new Brompton off-road is like. Have you had a go on that?
I have not, no. No, because someone's kept it for ages. Someone on GCN keeps riding it. I think actually there's some logic to it. It's almost like Brompton people have gone, you know what would work better is a slightly bigger tyre.
Everything's better when you go off-road, in my opinion. Anyway, what are we looking forward to this weekend? I believe it's a double Owen.
Shivers. Right, we've got how to make your wheels last longer, some tips and advice, and then we've got a bit of a deep dive into a very nerdy topic, which is tuned mass dampers. Oh, it's exciting.
Wow. Well, we'll see, but do jump into the comments in the meantime about what those upgrades are that you think are definitely worth the money. Let us know down in the comments below right now. But for now, thanks, bye.